Hi, so today I'm going to be reflecting on my TPACK lesson. I will just start off by saying the standard which I created my lesson about was RL.K.3, which says with prompting and support, identify characters, setting, and major events in a story. This lesson was geared towards character and setting only since it was an introductory lesson in kindergarten. My objective was that after exposure to a video and anchor chart about character and setting in the hook, an inquiry-based interactive read-aloud of the fable The Little Red Hen by Paul Galdone, and an interactive game about character and setting, students would be able to implement their understanding of new vocabulary by drawing a picture using technology, or Nearpod in this case, of a character and setting in the story. So the game that I included was through Nearpod, and it is a matching game, and I will go through that after I give my overview. I'm going to go through each slide. The student ISTE standards that I thought my lesson kind of exhibited the qualities of was 1.6, which was creative communicator, um, and 1.1, which is empowered learner. Um, the creative communicator aspect says that students communicate clearly and express themselves creatively for a variety of purposes using the platforms, tools, styles, and formats in digital media appropriate to their goals. So I felt like the students were able to express themselves creatively, especially through the Nearpod, in which they drew a character and setting, and were able to kind of think of their own example and express that. It could have related to the story, but they were able to draw whatever they wanted. So for the empowered learner, students really leverage technology to take an active role in choosing, achieving, and demonstrating competency in their learning goals. So for example, in my Edpuzzle video, students were able to demonstrate their competency by going through the questions as I gave them their read aloud presentation. Um, So this teacher ISTE standards that I chose for my lesson were 2.6 facilitator and 2.5 designer. I felt like my lesson facilitated learning with technology to support student achievement. Um, this lesson gave information through the slides, but also allowed them to interact with the slides, such as making a copy of the slide and entering their example that they thought of. For the 2.5 designer, the educators design an authentic learner-driven activities and environments that recognize and accommodate learner variability. Um, I definitely differentiated this lesson by including the option for students to record their responses because they are in kindergarten and might not be able to type all of their thoughts. They were allowed to click the record option in the Edpuzzle where they could just talk and state their responses if they couldn't type it. So that was something just to note. Behaviorism is the theory that supported this TPACK lesson because it is only concerned with observable stimulus response behaviors. When students are given the information in the slides, we can observe their response in the assessments to see if they learn and retain the information shown. The Edpuzzle lines up with this theory, especially because it allows the learner to repeat a cycle of watching and responding so that the teacher can assess their understanding. The slideshow is viewable with elements throughout that check for understanding and application to real-world scenarios. I also think that Malone's theory of intrinsically motivated instruction applies to this lesson because both the lesson and the theory focus on challenge, fantasy, and curiosity. I was able to create an exploratory environment on my sides that encouraged curiosity while also reading a story that was based on fantasy. I think the challenging part comes from my Nearpod activities, such as the matching game, because students just had to determine the pictures that were a setting and the pictures that were a character. I think my lesson could fall under both the TPACK and the TIM frameworks. My lesson brings content, pedagogy, and technology together like a TPACK lesson. The TIM model is a framework for describing and targeting the use of technology to enhance learning. My lesson uses technology to enhance learning because I have created engaging slides and used informative videos and slides as well. So with that, I will go through my slideshow and just kind of summarize each slide. Um, For the introduction or the introductory slide, I have a little classroom environment that kind of immerses the student within a virtual classroom. They are able to click around here, but first, when they play the slideshow, the first thing that will happen is that this video on their little virtual smartboard will play and it will give them information about characters and setting. Um, Next, they can click on the other two elements in the room. I didn't want to add too much because they needed to kind of progress through the slides. So for this little element, there is the anchor chart, which I really want them to notice. So that's something that I mentioned in slides later on. And then I tell them to click the books because it has the I can statements, because that really gives the students the objectives of the lesson. That tells them what should I expect to learn from this lesson. And I think it's important to point that out since I am covering only characters and setting in this standard, and I'm not covering main events because this is an introductory lesson. So next we have the content of the TPACK lesson. And this is just a strictly informational slide, which I think is very engaging with the color and pictures that are included. So it just tells the students what are characters and what is setting. It gives several examples through those pictures. Um, so after viewing the anchor chart, the video that was in the first slide, and this informational slide, they will progress on to the next slide, which is something that they need to make a copy of. They can follow the directions I included, but they will just click File, make a copy, selected slides, and once they click selected slides, they will be able to type their answer into this. So then they will type, I am in a house or I am in a classroom. And if they're not able to do that, then they can go down here and see that I gave them the anchor chart to refer back to. And I also gave them some pictures that might prompt their thinking, such as the house or classroom, because that is probably where they are going to be when they are doing this slideshow. I am just providing that for their own assessment of themselves to see, oh, do I know this or do I not know this? Because that is not something I'm necessarily recording. I just want them to be aware of their own learning and kind of self assess. Next, they are going to be doing the same thing with characters. So I asked them to name a character from their favorite story or movie, and they are going to do the same thing with file, make a copy, and then make a copy of this slide. And they're going to type in my favorite character is blank from the book/movie blank. And if, again, they don't know what that is, they can't remember, they can refer back to this anchor chart and they can look at these pictures as a visual prompt. So that is just for their own self-assessment so they can see where they're at and see if they need to go back and review anything. I also have a review video, which I think is important after those two slides because it just allows them to review if they didn't take the time to review themselves. It kind of forces them to review. So we have the character and setting video here, which I thought was a very unique video that I don't see a lot. And it also kind of gave them a little game at the end to identify character and setting, which they can do. Then we have an informational slide, which tells them about character clues. And that is something included in the HMH into reading curriculum here in Johnson County. So I wanted to include that because that is what they teach when they teach character and setting, character clues. And it's something that they have to look for in the stories that they read. So they are going to read that character clues show us how characters act, how they think, what they say, and how they feel, and that you can use pictures and text to identify those things. So I wanted to make sure I included that. Next, this slide is an slides, and they will type, is this a character setting? Type character, or sorry, type setting, type character. That's what they're going to do. Then they will move on to my Ed puzzle, which is going to be simply a video of me reading the story A Little Red Hen by Paul Godin. and there are many stopping points for them to answer questions. So if I can just share, I'm going to click on my Edpuzzle and then I'm going to share the screen so that my Edpuzzle can be viewed. And let's see, I will stop. Well, I will stop sharing my slideshow. I'm just going to share my screen now. Screen. Entire screen share. All right, so here's the Edpuzzle. That is me reading the story to them. And then these are all of the questions that they are going to be stopping at. And there is also going to be that record option that I mentioned. Let's read more to find out. So I do stop as I'm reading the story to them and say, okay, like here's the question. And then I'll have the question as typed as well. So that is that. And then we get on to the assessments, which are done through Nearpod. Now, these are linked, but there may have to be a point where they click open link when they're in the presentation version of it. But this is what it looks like. So Nearpod 1, this is the matching game. And they're going to type in their name. My name is already in here for some reason. And they're going to be matching the pictures to the words. And then the second Nearpod is their summative assessment, which is drawing. It's a drawing through Nearpod. So my name's already in here. They're going to join the lesson, and then they're going to draw a picture of at least one character from the story we read together, Little Red Hen by Paul Gudgeon. I hope they would draw one of the animals, like the cat, the mouse, the dog, or the hen. I'm just submitting that. And then draw a picture of one of the settings from Little Red Hen by Paul Gudgeon. Obviously, I'm not expecting a piece of artwork, but I'm just hoping for the best here that they will draw a setting from the story, because the settings were very simple. There was a house, there was outdoor areas. It shouldn't be too difficult for them, and that is that. Here I have my citations. So that is my TPACK lesson, and thank you so much for watching.